I'm Dr. Barney Roca, the Spokane chiropractor, and I'm hosting Donuts for Democracy. And today I'm meeting with Andrew. Andrew, would you like to introduce yourself?
Andrew, better known as Bartleson for Congress. Meeting with Barney, I really appreciate you giving the opportunity and doing this for the community, getting a chance to have real one-on-one with someone versus just, like you said, doing the stage presentations.
Wonderful. I appreciate you coming out. Well, why don't you just give us a quick introduction? Why exactly are you running for Congress? I think some people might describe all the candidates as somewhat of a long shot. So what brings you into this race?
For quite a while, I mean, going back to, beginning of the Trump era way back then, there's been a lot of frustration, a lot of anger. The pandemic happens. There's a lot of ruminating, just frustration, telling my wife, my daughter's 19 now. This will be her first election to vote in. And she really indulges me and she gets into it and has these conversations, shares what's going on in her life and her friend's life, and just building that frustration. And some people don't want to hear about it all the time. They get kind of tired of it. And about this time last year, actually, we were talking, and yeah, it's a long shot. Get that, but also we need to show these young folks what's possible. We talk so much about money in politics. You got to get money in politics. And they make it seem like it's something you just can't do unless you're one of these, elite, wealthy people, lawyers, doctors, millionaires. But if you look into it, really, if you got the $1,740 to get on the ballot, you can do it. And yeah, I think I'm going to win because I like to speak things into existence. But I get them a long shot. My daughter, she also does political science classes, something she might be interested in the future, and just showing them what's possible. Because you're sitting on your ass complaining, doesn't do a damn thing. So get out there. At the very least, people are hearing me. At the very least, I'm speaking on things and being honest. I'm not giving equivocal answers. Well, it's a complicated question. We kind of go halfway this way and halfway that way. You ask me what I think, I'm going to give you what I think. You might not like it. You might, but at least you'll know I know where he stands on things. And we need to stand up for each other. That's a huge thing. We've been conditioned to believe that we're so different. We have a hell of a lot more in common than we're led to believe. You can go interact with people and have good conversations with them. You don't know anybody's politics or anything. Actually have great talks. Friendly with people. But we're being conditioned to hate each other. As long as we hate each other, we're not going to unite. And if we don't unite, we're not actually going to address the problems that are going on.
Well, you mentioned some frustrations that led to you running for Congress. What are some of those frustrations?
The biggest frustrations is everything goes on with this Trump administration. It's just open, blatant corruption. The fact that I get corporations have as much money as they do, so they're going to have power. But the fact that it's so skewed, government is supposed to protect the people from the powers. Right? We don't have the power individually to protect ourselves in those ways. Whether it's just the different agencies like EPA, supposed to protect the environment for us from large-scale polluters. I can't go out to a chemical plant. I don't have the means to go and check the water, the air quality around there. I don't have the means to enforce anything. That's what the government's supposed to do. Financial Protection Agency. That's meant to protect us so that you need to invest for retirement. Most people don't have pensions unless you're part of a union. They're meant to protect us. Most people don't know stocks, know how to finance. And they can invest, they can put in their 401k. But you need that protection to make sure that they're actually following the rules, that they're not lying on their books, that they're not manipulated, that we're not going to get stuck in having more continuous crashes. If you plan for retirement and the economy crashes every 20 years and that's when you're planning on retiring, you're screwed. And we need those things. We need to support each other in those ways. And then just the blatant corruption. What was it last week? $1.6 billion of taxpayer money was given for a tungsten mine in Kazakhstan to be operated by Howard Nutlick and the two Trump boys. That's ridiculous. That's out in the open now. That's not something that's just being hidden and somebody did a deep investigative report on it and uncovered it. They're openly announcing it. They planned it for a year. That should frighten the hell out of us that they feel so confident that they could just be public with those kind of things, that kind of corruption.
Yeah, corruption is rampant, and it's out in the open. A lot of it is totally legal, and it even boils down not just with that one individual in that one instance, but to pork legislation and this handouts and kickbacks. So if you were elected to Congress, what is it that you would do about it? What could you do, and what would you do? What would you fight for?
We don't have a problem with funds in this country. We have a spending problem. And the problem is we spend so much money on things that don't benefit the people. We need to reallocate the funds. And I was up in Colville for a Republican event. They invited me. I thought it was awesome. I actually invited two of the Democrats as well that showed up. And that was great. And immediately they were talking, and one of the things that, there was the local candidates and the county candidates went before us. We heard a lot of talk about the West Side. And I get it. They have, I think, 7 counties in their legislative district. It's a huge area, not as many people. They don't really have much power. But they're talking about, the counties going broke. They need funding. And they started talking about socialism. It's like, well, now I think, did you ever notice that whenever it's something that benefits you, that's when you hear the crying socialism, when it benefits the people? But when we transfer the $250 billion plus every year in corporate welfare, you don't hear a thing. But that's not capitalism. That's literally what China does. Is China funds their select businesses, they promote them, they make sure they succeed. But you don't hear anything there. That's not free market. That's not capitalism. So if you want to say we're a capitalist society, then why aren't we acting on it in that sense? It's only when it comes to the people that they have a problem, with socialism, when they give to us. Yes, fine.
What about, the question was about corruption.
Oh, yeah.
So,
And so then you see, when Trump gets inaugurated, who is surrounding him now in the most recent inauguration? The CEOs of Apple, all the crypto companies. You got Peter Thiel, Palantir, and then you see all the contracts that go out to them for the government money. There's a reason why they're there. The reason why they give those donations. He's made it very clear that if you give me money, if you support me, if you fund me, look at Elon Musk. It's not the $300 million where they say they donated. It's what he did with Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it, the amount of propaganda he pushed on his behalf to get him there. He's very clear. You take care of me, I take care of you. That's not cool. Now, the tariffs, they're supposed to protect emerging industries, vulnerable industries. It's not supposed to be across the board to punish. And then, speaking of the corruption of the tariffs, we put the tariffs on. Our soybean prices go higher. China doesn't want to buy them. Argentina removes their export tariffs. Now the price of their soybeans dropped dramatically. China buys them all up. And then Argentina's like, whoa, hey, we don't have any funding for our government anymore. And well, Scott Bessent, Peter Thiel, them are heavily invested in Argentina. So then we send them $20 billion. And then we have to send billions of dollars to bail out our farmers. Does that benefit us? No. But it sure as hell benefited Scott Bessent. It sure as hell benefited Peter Thiel. It sure as hell benefited Javier Milei down in Argentina, who's aligned himself with Trump. Those kind of policies don't help the people. It's the America First thing, and conceptually, it sounds good, but they forget 2 key letters, the N and the S. But their meaning is corporate America first, not Americans, not the people. We should be benefiting first. When people are struggling, when people have this many complaints and have this much frustration, stress, insecurity in their life, we need to take care of each other.
Yeah. I do think corruption is an issue that resonates with a lot of people, and it is an important issue. I don't know if it's the most important issue, but it's certainly important. So if you were elected to represent us in D.C., what would you do to fight corruption in D.C.? This is this is open corruption.
Yeah,
They aren't doing anything illegal.
Yeah.
But it's happening all the time, and it's special interest. It's mega corporations. So what would you do? What's your solution?
And actually, I think so. One of the problems with frustration with the Democrat Party, and I tend to vote left. Don't get me wrong. What frustrates me is that the lack of long-term thinking, lack of strategy. What has been going on with the Republican Party, we can go back as far as the Southern strategy, but even more recently, in the last 40 years or so, where they've been meticulously planning each step of the way, and Democrats just are reactive. They're not thinking long-term. And what I see happening here is, like you say, the corruption, and then we want to have legislative priorities. We want to make things better for people. So when we get into Congress, I think they expect they're going to at least lose the House, and that happens. What are you going to pick? What are you going to do, right? So if you want to go focus on taking care of the people, they can stall that. The corruption continues. You just focus on the corruption. You're not getting your legislative ideas done. I think it's very well planned on their part, and they're going to be able to attack on both sides. Either you didn't get things done, or they're just weaponizing. They're trying to attack us, and they're falling into that trap. What they really need to do is point out how it's all related to each other. Right? The corruption, the costs going up. So it's like say with the corporate money going to Trump, going to investing in their investments, Howard Lutnick's investments, and then you look at the fact that we're consolidating all the markets. Anti-corruption laws are not being enforced.
Antitrust.
Trust, are not being enforced. So you're allowing these monopolies to get bigger and stronger. It's all part of the same picture. The corruption it might not be straight bribery because the Supreme Court redefined what bribery counts as, but definitely the pay to play is in place. And then you look at the way they benefit from this. You're getting more power. You're consolidating your markets. We're allowing you. Nobody talks about this in the media that I've seen, like any of the media. None of the politicians talk about this. The California Attorney General just last month, I think it was maybe late April, released the unredacted records from the Amazon case they had down there showing Amazon engaging in collusion and price fixing with their suppliers and Walmart and Target and Home Depot and the Chewy Pet Food Company on down the way. Telling them, like Levi's was one company, said, if we noticed that Walmart and Target are selling your jeans for $22, we're selling them at $27. You need to have them raise that to $27 by the end of the day or we're pulling you from our site. And by the end of the day, they got an email saying, check the website now. And it was up to $27. So Amazon was already making a profit at $27. And obviously, Target and Walmart were just fine at $22. But they said, raise it to $27. That's just $5 more each person needs to pay for the pants. And you got back to school shopping, you're paying $5 more for each one of them. They're already profitable, but now they're just getting more money from it because they're colluding on that. We talk about rent prices. This one's actually been addressed somewhat, where those landlords are using those apps to collude on the prices so that they can make sure they're getting as much as they can as possible. If you're raising it, I'm raising it. We're going to do that together. That kind of crap has to stop. We need to address those kind of things. We need price fixing. That needs to be addressed. And you look at how much easier these things get with the advent of AI, where you can calculate just massive amounts of data quickly. Those things need to be addressed. The unregulated AI is here. We're not going to stop it. You're not just going to be like, we're blocking AI, national security reasons. It's everywhere now. But there needs to be regulation.
Okay, what kind of regulation?
We need to find a way with these videos. Right? They're going to get better and better with the fake videos. People aren't getting. My wife falls for that sometimes. So she's like, "Oh, look at this crazy thing going on." It's not logical, so but if you just look at it, that's really cool. It could be like some animals interacting with people that wouldn't normally, like, oh, look at this guy wrestling with a bear or whatever. But there has to be some legislation that makes it clear when these are not real videos, ways to tell that these are not. I'm not the tech nerd. I don't know all tech stuff. There's got to be something to, imprint the video, something so people can understand what's reality and not. Because it's going to cut a time, and the line's already getting blurred, and that's scary. And the manipulation that goes on out there, that's going to be problematic because we're going to keep being more divided. Because one side's going to say, this is the reality we have. One side, this is the reality we have, and we see that now. Where we can't alternate facts, that kind of crap. It's going to get worse. We need to address those things before it gets worse.
So, the truth in advertising, so to speak, making sure the video is labeled and all that, I can understand that. But I think the real threat and the real fear of AI right now is how it's going to affect the job market. And then, seeing a fake video is one thing, but losing your job is quite the other. So what kind of legislation, what kind of action would you take to control AI?
That's another thing right there, too. The fact that they're so open about that should scare us. That's not something that they're just planning, in boardrooms that we don't hear about. They openly advertise it. They openly talk about it. They speak on how, we're going to replace this much of the workforce. We're going to automate all these jobs. And then you see a domestic surveillance state being implemented. AI being used for that. So when the dissent does come, it seems like they're setting up to make sure they can squash that. That scares me. But as far as that goes, one big issue where we can start at least combating that some way is the fact that education is how you get to a better life. Training, and I don't mean you just have to go to college. If you want to go be in skilled trades, getting that training, because employers don't want to train you. It's hard to get entry level jobs. Either you're over experienced or you don't have enough experience to get in there, and you can't get the positions. So, big one. Like we talk about the corporate welfare, $250 billion plus in corporate welfare goes out every year. That's more than enough to pay for everybody's undergraduate tuition at a public university. So you can be leaving without having debt. So right now, people that went for the STEM classes or went to the computer science classes, they graduated and it's taken them a year to find a job. and a lot of them don't have it, and they end up working, Chipotle's or Walmart's or whatever stores. They have that student loan debt. They're making minimum wage or slightly above. You're just trying to survive. If you didn't have that $500-600 loan, it'd be a lot easier on you. You could afford more things. You could get training in industries that where you're going to be needed. I told my daughter this a long time ago. I said, soon there's going to be two jobs. There's going to be service jobs and those that work on the AIs and the robots. So start training them now for the future. And they should collaborate with that. If they know these are what we're going to be automating, this is what we're going to be needing, to be open about it, be honest, and let people get that training, let them plan for the future. Don't just say, yeah, we're going to automate all these white-collar jobs. You're not going to need, accountants or bookkeepers and on down the way. Okay, what will you need then? What can people do? People that went to school because they figured, if I learn coding and I learn computer sciences, I'll have a job. I can go to Amazon, go to Google's. I'm gonna have a great career. I'm gonna start out making good money. I might work long hours, but that's a path. And then all of a sudden, they get out and they're letting everybody go because they only need a few of their coders to watch the AI and make sure it's done right.
Well, do you have an actual policy on what to do about the oncoming AI, on how to regulate it so that it obviously job training, all that's wonderful, but do you have a policy that would target the unrestricted growth of AI from taking jobs and putting people out of work?
I think in the private industries, it's a lot harder because it's supposed to be a free market. They operate how they want to. One thing that I do appreciate, especially as a citizen and a worker for the government, is like the state of Washington does not allow any AI. Period. We don't get to use it.
Oh.
But my job, I work for L&I. I do audits. Theoretically, that's a place where they would like to implement it. They're very clear. We're not putting it in there. You're not allowed to bring, your own whatever plugins or whatever you want to call it. That's great. Stepping up. In fact, I think it's going to burn itself out pretty soon. From what I've seen with in the news lately, these companies are spending so much money on the tokens or whatever you call it for the AI that they've now realized we're spending more on the AI than on the workforce we just had. So that's a good sign.
One of the reasons that's true is because the cost of energy has gone up so much. So that's another crisis that's coming towards people. But in terms of policy, there have been some that have advocated for a robot tax. So if you have which you could use to target specific applications of AI, because like you said, the development of defense AI and other things, that's critical to our national security and also in our tech sector, just to make sure that we are the world's innovators. So you don't want to restrict that kind of AI, but the kind of AI that could do accounting, let's say, or audits of books that could take your job, instead of allowing that to unfold unregulated, you would apply a robot tax so that it would become expensive and less appealing to replace the job with AI. But you bring up a good point with the cost, because that cost is also one that we're bearing because our energy costs are going up, which is it's making it more expensive just to live. So again, what is it? What are you going to do about it? What can be done about it?
The robot tax idea. I know in the past, I think Andrew Yanks and others have talked about the universal basic income, and the UBI. That actually would be a really great thing to have for people. I think it'd be a hard sell for a lot of folks. That'd be something too progressive for them, even though that would be a way of doing it. But the thing, the part, individually, like the government, it's gonna be hard to get them fully on board, to slowing down the job. But the individuals, I love seeing what's going on with the flock cameras. The people standing up and going to city council meetings and telling them we don't want the flock cameras. The data centers standing up, letting them know, have your voice heard. That's great. And I think more and more we need to do that stuff. Because like I said, there's a purpose for AI. There's a purpose in national security, just for protecting ourselves, our infrastructure. The amount of security that it can do. That's great. But automating the jobs, backlash against customer service jobs. Who likes to get the AI chatbot? It irritates the hell out of you. You got to complain about that. You got to let them know that no, I'm not going to go and deal with you because I don't have an actual human that's going to help me here. When you go and you have a problem and you get to speak to a human, they can actually listen, empathize, understand, and know how to help you and what you're really after. When you try to put in a chat bot, how often do you get the repeat of, whoa, is it one of these options you want again? It's like, no, it's not just one of your 6 stock options. This is what I'm telling you is wrong. And it just keeps going. And you do that over and over, and you finally get a customer service representative. So we need to step up and make clear that, use our power that we have. I'm not dealing with you. When I go to Costco, I don't get chat AI bots at Costco. I got a problem. I go up to the desk and I return my stuff, and Costco's like, sorry for whatever issue you had. Here's your money back. Done. I'm not going around in circles. People go to Amazon and they got something wrong, or their order's messed up. You're stuck in that AI chatbot loop, and then it might even promise to get your refund done, and you wait, and a week later nothing's happened again. Stop. And these ideas of having the one day, we're not gonna buy anything on a Thursday. That's not gonna do anything. You're just gonna buy it on Friday or Wednesday. If you want to make a statement, we're just not buying from you till things change. There's plenty of other places we can buy to.
Well, but in Congress, you would have the ability to take action, create legislation, build relationships to do something about it. And like you said, with customer service, when I remember when they were talking about all the jobs going overseas back in the 90s. And one of the first instances of that is when you called someplace, instead of speaking with somebody local that spoke English, you were speaking with somebody that obviously didn't speak English as their first language. It's one of the first signs that those jobs are being sent overseas. And now this is, again, these jobs are actually leaving. They're being replaced by AI. So it's happening right now. We're seeing positions that are being replaced with computers. And that was one of our first touchy-feely moments when we have to interact with the AI when we call a company and have to, for whatever reason. So what is it that, if you're in Congress, what would you do in order to, or what would you fight for, or what would you vote for in order to address these, the AI that's taking jobs right now?
And I think it would behoove the companies that are using the AI, that are creating the AI, they say be honest about what jobs are going to be needed in the future, get people the training, the skills in that one. Because if people don't have money because they don't have jobs, they're not buying your shit anymore. Like, who are you selling to? We got to think about that. They, from their perspective, need to start thinking about this. They do talk. They're openly talking about, we're going to replace this many jobs. We can do that, but they've never seemed to contemplate how are people going to buy your stuff anymore. What is your purpose? What are you going to do? It behooves them to work with people to find solutions for what we're going to do next. What can people do? I don't think you can just, like you say, just legislate them that, you can't take the jobs. The Republicans won't go for that because they get paid. But it's not realistic to say you can't determine who you're gonna hire fired, especially when you can be hired and fired at any point, any time these days. But they definitely should work to help you navigate what's going to be coming, because they know the plans, they know where they are in the process. They can be honest about the robots. We keep hearing about robots. Elon Musk was talking about those self-driving cars for the longest time. We're going to have all these self-driving taxis, and there's all kinds of problems with those things. But how about be honest? Like, where are we actually at here? And what do you need in the future? Where can we go? Because my daughter, she's 19. Where should she plan on studying for school? What's going to be beneficial to her? If you don't know, and you take what you're told from a couple of years ago's information, you're not really being kept up on where we're going, what's being needed, then you end up graduating with a degree that's not going to help you. You end up having skills that aren't going to help you. People want to have the skills. They want to succeed. They're willing to take the time. But if they don't really know, they say with the STEM classes, because to get to this point, previously they kept saying, the STEM classes are the way to go. The engineering, you need to know the math, technology, do that. That's going to give you the path for the future. But then that market got so saturated. So just be honest with people and let them know these are the things that are going to benefit you. Like if the robots are really getting closer, you need those kind of engineers. Let people know these types of engineering programs. They should start, funding scholarships. Until we get free education, they should be helping create that workforce to benefit themselves. Now, we need to work collaboratively, both with the corporations, the people, but just as a society in general.
Well, we have a number of issues that I think are really important to Americans. I think right now one of them is just the high cost of goods and also healthcare. So those are probably the two things that I wanted to touch on. What do you think can be done now, or what's your position about hyperinflation? You talk about tariffs and these other things, sending prices up. What is it that if you were sent to Congress you would want to do in order to bring prices down?
So it's like ground beef's like $8 a pound or something crazy now. That's insane, right? These are the pieces of beef that aren't suitable to be kept as steaks, and they just grind it up, and it's $8 a pound. That's what used to be like top sirloin would go for a few years ago. That's insane. Meanwhile, ranchers are getting less per pound for their cattle. Why? There's 4 companies that control the meat market. 4 companies that have the feedlots and the slaughterhouses. So they determine what we're going to pay for your cattle, and they determine what we're going to pay for beef, and take it or leave it. We need to give more options for, across the board, but that's just one example of industry. More options. And whether that means getting co-ops so that these ranchers can have their own facilities that aren't owned by these major corporations. Man, we got the Brazilian beef company is one of the, if not the largest beef company in our country right now. They have no incentive to make sure things are affordable for us. And that's across the board. You look at the, how many grocery stores are there now out here? All right, we got Kroger controls them. And they don't have QFCs over here, but they're big on the west side. But they're Fred Meyer's. Safeway is Albertsons now. You have Walmart. I guess maybe depending on where you live, there might be like a Rose Hours or a Yokes near you. But there's no independent grocery store. There's no competition anymore. There's 2 or 3 grocery stores. They might throw something on sale to entice you, but a bag of Doritos is like $6 now. It was just $3 a couple years ago. Where else are you going to get it?
We're all aware of the problem. We're looking for the solution.
Yeah, but we need antitrust enforcement. We need to break up the monopolies. Healthy competition keeps prices down. When you don't have the competition, you see your competitor raise it, you raise it. There's no need to keep things lower. There's no need to entice people to come to you because they don't have choices anymore. Look at chicken, pork, beef, 4 companies. You look at the farmers. When you get the grain, 2 companies control who's going to buy your crops. They determine what you're going to grow, when you're going to grow it, how much you're going to get paid for it. Where do we not have monopolies in place anymore? Where do massive corporations not control everything anymore? We need to have, and look at just the food itself. Right? The Mondes company, how many products they've owned. Kraft, how many products they own. If you buy beer, it's most likely coming from InBev. It's not just Budweiser's a big company. They're owned by bigger companies. Your Kraft mac and cheese. Kraft owns so many things. Procter and Gamble. All these things under the same umbrella. Everything's consolidated. That's just going to put more and more pressure on us. There's no incentive for them because they have no competition. And it was never meant to be that way. We get Standard Oil. They got the 90% of the oil. We broke up Standard Oil, and we gave half dozen different gas companies now. We need to stop that. Stop allowing mergers. And we keep saying, with our media now, it's all consolidated. And that's why we're not getting real talk anymore. Why we're getting manipulated information. Because it's all becoming consolidated. And none of that benefits us. And that's the abdication of their responsibility. Our government has the power to enforce antitrust legislation. And they're not doing it. Congress needs to strengthen those antitrust regulations. And you stop allowing mergers of larger companies into even larger companies. That doesn't benefit anybody. And you look at the supply chains, like they had that baby formula issue, 5-6 years ago. There's only 2 places that make baby formula. So if something gets tainted at one of those factories, you're losing half the production. That's not good. That's not safe. We can't allow it to continue happening. And yeah, there's efficiencies of scale, but then there's also, you're putting too many eggs in one basket. And that's harmful. So we need to address that right away. Stop allowing these mega mergers to take place. Start breaking these companies up. Because they were just fine as their individual components. They operated just fine, and then they get bought up, and then they get bought up again.
And then, when I was younger, everybody talked about how there was universal health care was available in Canada and these other countries. And the counter argument always was, well, yeah, but it takes forever to get in to see your doctor because everybody's going to the doctor. And now I'm a little bit older, and I have Canadian friends, and I have friends that have gone over to the UK, and I have plenty of patients here. And guess what? It takes forever to get into the doctor, and it's really hard to get in. It's hard to get an appointment, and when you do, you've got outrageous costs, even if you have health insurance. So really, from my perspective, as part of the healthcare industry, healthcare is broken, and it has been broken for basically most of my life, if not my entire life. What is it? I know this is one of your issues, and it's an issue that's important to a lot of people in our district. What is your plan? What can we do to fix the healthcare system in the United States?
So yeah, exactly what you said there. With the time, go make an appointment. If you have a primary care, go make an appointment. You're probably, if you're lucky, getting in September. If you don't have a primary care provider, who knows how long? These lobbies aren't even taking new patients anymore. And they talk about, like, yeah, in Canada it can take a while. If your knee hurts and you're, scheduled for MRI, that's not an emergency. You might get bumped back to somebody that has a serious injury. That happens. I get that. But it takes forever to get anything. I mean, how long does it take to get a referral process these days? It's not like you get to just go into your primary care and you walk downstairs and get an MRI. And I think not everybody, 70% at least, it sounds like, are on board with the universal health care. And so we had one of the programs the other day, and they said, kept saying yes, but the critics will say cost, or they'll say, the European, Scandinavian countries that have universal health care, they pay a lot higher tax rate. What are you talking about? My employer pays like 25% of my wages in premiums. What is that? We don't call it a tax, we call it a premium, but shit, that's 25%. Plus we already pay. We're already paying it. When they make those arguments, they act like it's like some, mystery money should be having to appear that we're not already paying. The cost of universal health care would cost $3.8 trillion. That's the estimate. We already pay $4.9 trillion. That's $1.1 trillion in excess that we already pay. They talk about Social Security being insolvent soon. I think they said 2032, the Republicans said recently that it'll be insolvent. The cost for Social Security for both disability and retirement in 2024 was $1.5 trillion. So we're already paying almost that money in excess just on healthcare right now. And yet, that's going to solve it. With all the extra money, that is an insane amount of money. I mean, that's the military budget. We pay in excess on our healthcare currently the amount that the military budget is.
4 times.
It's ridiculous. There's no excuse not to have that. And I know that the plan to implement that is not going to be just immediate. It'll take some time. Bigger issue. I have good insurance working for the state. I'm so lucky to have that. But even I'm frustrated. Why do we have average family plans like $25,472 in premium between employer and worker? And then you have a separate plan from Delta Dental for your dental insurance, which might cover a cleaning or two. Right. Great. But what if you have to have a root canal? What if you have to have a crown? What if you or your child needs braces? That's out of pocket. Oh, and that $3,000-$4,000 deductible you have on your health insurance plan doesn't count towards that. It doesn't count towards your max out of pocket. You have eye care, you have contacts, you have glasses. You kind of need that thing every day. But now you got separate eye care plans where you get a benefit every 2 years. What the hell is that? Why do we accept that? That is ridiculous. Companies, the insurance companies, the subsidies, the Obamacare subsidies, ACA, whatever you want to call it, those subsidies, they're getting government money. They're getting federal funding. So, just like they did with the protections against pre-existing injuries, putting that clause in there, we mandate that you're going to give total health care coverage. You're not going to segregate everything into separate policies where you don't really benefit unless you have a $4,000 deductible. You're not really getting any benefit on your insurance that you're paying these tens of thousands of dollars for unless you have a catastrophic injury. You're not going as regular doctor visits and hitting that number. So you're basically just throwing that money away. And yet, when you do need something, there's so many links showing the connection between oral health, heart health, gut health. That is healthcare. It shouldn't be separated. You should put it all into one. And that way, at least you benefit. If you need to get your teeth fixed, if you need your teeth straightened, think about it, just like with braces. It's not just aesthetic. It's mental because if you have your teeth, health, self-esteem, breathing. If you have, they can affect your breathing. There's so many impacts of that. All that should be in one. Physical health, mental health, dental health, eye care, hearing. People go to have insurance will find that buying hearing aids is cheaper at Costco without insurance. What the hell? What are you paying this much damn money for? It's crazy. We pay that much money and we get no benefit. That needs to be addressed immediately. If you're going to receive any of the ACA as a company, period, not just on plan, if your company receives any of it, total health care has to be everything in one package. You can't segregate it out. That's the first thing that needs to be addressed immediately while they work to implement universal health care, single payer, whatever you want to call it. But immediately you can address that, because they're not going to get their revenue if they're not getting the subsidies. They need that. We have that power to enforce that and make them give one policy for everybody. It's bad enough having deductibles that are that damn high, but when so many things don't even count towards it, that's not acceptable.
Well, we've got a few minutes left here. Is there anything else that you want to talk about in closing?
Yeah, and I think one big thing, and I think it's really something important we really need to address as a society, we are being the data harvesting, right? We got these little pocket trackers, our cars now, refrigerators, these smart appliances, everything you go is tracking your data now. It's harvesting your data. It's being used to manipulate us. You go to the algorithms. I opened up a Twitter account about a year ago to start this. So I should have nothing in that for you, theoretically. These algorithms should have nothing on me to force there. And yet, when I opened that account, immediately, it was just hate, just targeting hate. Everybody has a flavor of hate. And they will find that, and they will direct you towards it. And they will keep us divided. And as long as we're divided, as long as we want to point our finger at others, rather than looking at what the real problems are and fixing them, nothing's going to get better. But we need to unite. We need to come together. We need to realize that, a win for you is not a loss for me. That's just a win for you. When you receive, you don't take from me. Like, we all deserve a slice of the pie. And the United States of America has the biggest damn pie in the world. And we shouldn't be licking the plates of billionaires just to get our taste. And that's, people don't, they want to get socialism, like and communism they'll talk about now. They're just manipulating you so you don't get what is best for you. We need to come together. We're going to disagree on many things. That's okay. We don't have to agree on everything. But we should agree that I want you to have the best life you can have. I want your family to have the best life you can have. I want you to be happy, safe, and secure. I think you'd want that from me. And we need to understand that. We all know people that have different ideological beliefs than us. And for the most part, we get along with them. I'm going up to Colville. I had a great time up there. I'm not a Republican. Far from it. But I went up there and spoke with him. I think the guy that was hosting it, Tim, right away, he said, the sheriff was there and he wanted to make sure there's no antagonizing and no yelling or anything like that. And I got that, man, that's so sad that you think you had to even address that. Why would I come up to your county here, come to your community, just to come here and insult you? I didn't come here to do that. I want to hear from you.
Well, we do have really deep divisions in our political climate right now, and people are very passionate about it. And you had mentioned that when you first started, was addressing the division in politics right now. We've got two parties that have become increasingly polarized. So again, we know that this is an issue. Everybody sees it. We don't need to be have the reality explained to us when it's right in front of our face. But what is it that can be done about it?
Algorithms aren't free speech. Algorithms are targeted at you to manipulate you. They're sending you what they want you to see. And like they say, if you watch a video on one thing, they send you further down the rabbit hole. That's not right. They shouldn't be having that ability to get, you might be curious about one thing. And look how people get farther down there. They might watch a video on...
But now this is a private company, and that algorithm is programmed to do that because it gets engagement, and the more time you spend looking at that screen, the more ads that they can sell. So that's why they're doing it.
And we got rid of those Section 230 protections from them. Now, those were meant for just people that were hosting like chat forums. So we're going to give you open space to just talk.
I actually think that they were meant more for book publishers and magazine publishers and those protections, because if somebody ran an ad in a newspaper and that ad wound up to be for a scam, you couldn't sue the publisher for running the scam, because the only thing they did was sell ad space. Well, now when you sell ad space on Facebook or even Google or any of these other things, they're not merely providing a space to put an ad. They're targeting people. They're providing infrastructure in order to execute the scam. So is that one way that you'd go about addressing it? Is taking away these protections so that they can be sued for the nefarious actors that are on their platform?
I think there was the other year, started with the woman, her son, engaging with those chat bots. That thing encouraged her son to commit suicide. But then they want to say, well, you got protections on that.
Right.
Well, then that removes a means to hold them accountable. If you're going to be doing nefarious things, you should be held accountable. You shouldn't just be blanket protection. The same thing, like you're talking about the ads. Why are we having to opt out every single time you want to go to a website or go anywhere? Opt out. And you can't even fully opt out. You're just saying, we won't let these other people track all your data and take it, but we're still going to. You should have to opt in. It should be, yeah, I'm okay with you doing that. And if they want to give you some return, great. But it shouldn't be, we're at the point where cell phones are just becoming a necessity of life. People expect you to be available. You need to check your emails because work runs on emails and Zoom calls and all that now. Okay, but you shouldn't also have to then be knowing that I'm going to give you all this personal information that you can do what you want with. Same thing with the domestic surveillance state. These flock cameras, they're constantly being watched and being tracked. Speaking of cost, what people would love to have is a car that just runs and doesn't have all this computer shit in it that needs infotainment screen. That's why using your phone or driving with these big ass infotainment screens. Those kind of things. That would lower the cost.
Well, I think people would argue that it's exactly what people want, and that's why people buy them. If they didn't want them, they wouldn't. Or if they didn't sell them, then they wouldn't.
I think there's a lot of people that don't want. They just want basic vehicles.
Right.
Like my wife has one of those ones with the little push start on it, right? And one day we goes in the garage, it won't start. It's like, okay. So I go there, try to figure out what's wrong with it. Okay, try to jump start it, and I'm sitting there like, how the hell do I turn this thing over? There's a button, and so I call them up, and they're like, oh yeah, just push the button like you're doing. It's like, yeah, but it's not doing anything now. The door locks, the battery dies. You can't lock the door because you don't have a key anymore and lock the door, like those kind of things. And I think there's like that, the Toyota Hilux. It's a nice simple truck, like the old Ford Ranger type truck. It's a basic truck.
That's what I drive.
Yeah. People, there's a market for that. People want that, but they don't want that to bring in because they prefer to sell $50,000 vehicles that have equipment. I think California, there's some backlash from the car companies about California putting in the tracking law where it has to track all your data, GPS, where you're going, for emissions control and whatnot. I'm not comfortable with that. I don't like the idea of my car having this tracker data that's mandated to provide all this information. But yeah, some people want to have the comfort and they want to have the ease. They want to have the screen that just tells them, here's all your directions. I prefer to know where I'm going ahead of time so I don't have to follow that. It tends to be really slow when they tell you to take a right up here, 200 feet, and you're like, yeah, it was back there. But this should be an option at least. I think that there is a big market. People do like that, but things like that can help us. But I think we're talking about how open they are about the AI is taking the job, how open the corruption is right now. I don't think it's coincidental that we're seeing implementation of these flock cameras and the security state and the tracking all at the same time. Because people make the French Revolution jokes like, oh, we're gonna eat the rich and do all that. But maybe they think, yeah, people are going to revolt at some point here because it is getting worse and we don't plan on making it better. So how better to combat that than to put in a surveillance state?
Well, it is the flock cameras, in my opinion, are a continuation of a long-standing expansion of the law enforcement's ability to violate our Fourth Amendment rights. It's been going on for a very long time, and it's not just one administration. And it's not just one party. It's been going on for a long, long time. And I know it's not a critical issue that doesn't get a lot of attention, but our Fourth Amendment has been eroded over many, many years. So do you think that we need to sue? What do we do? We have a Fourth Amendment. We already have the law. Congress has the power of oversight. What is it that can be done in order to restore and protect our Fourth Amendment rights, protect us from civil asset forfeiture, which doesn't even require you to be accused of a crime.
No, that's
which is the same with the flock cameras. It doesn't matter if you've been accused or not; they can still use those flock
cameras. If you have
cameras.
a wad of cash in your pocket and they want
take
to,
it.
they say, well, you got to prove otherwise. You'd be going to go buy a vehicle and maybe find somebody selling one online. You go to go meet them, so you got $3,000 in your pocket. They don't like the looks of you. Well, that's suspicious. We're going to seize this, and you can go ahead and try to get it back. That's not acceptable. The warrantless raids, the no-knock raids, that's not acceptable. And there's extreme scenarios where you could say that, yeah, this is necessary. If you know that, somebody's armed, they're expecting us to be there, what have you, that's fine. But when you just go in and kick people's door in at 4 a.m. when they're asleep, and we're a Second Amendment country, and then you shoot them because they had a gun because you broke into their house at 4 a.m, that's not okay. We were having a talk the other day, or yesterday and they were going over first, it's essentially been like, the First Amendment, Second Amendment, Third, do we think these still apply today or what have you? It's like, what the hell are we talking about? You're indulging that kind of narrative. You're indulging, equal protection that doesn't apply anymore. No, it absolutely does. And stop it and don't have the conversation in a negative, have an affirmative, like, hell yeah, it does. Why the hell are you saying it doesn't? We need to, as fervent as people are about the Second Amendment rights, I believe in all those rights. As big as they are about free speech, as big as they are about, the freedom to practice religion or be from it, we need to all be fervent about all of our rights. Because they will take them away, and you don't get them back. When something gets eroded, when something is taken away, they don't just give it back. I mean, look at the Patriot Act and what happened there, it's failing. And,
it's only temporary.
Yeah, exactly. Once they get it, they condition you to accept it, and it just goes in the background and keeps going.
Yeah.
And I know there's talks like, we got to pack the court, we got to do this and that. What we really need to do is stop putting ideologues. It should be, if you really want the Supreme Court to read the Constitution, make decisions, you need just neutral people, not being, these far right. Even the ones that are now on the right. These guys, if you had a rank, you got a 0 to 100 left to right scale. You got guys like 96, 97, 98. Clarence Thomas, Alito. They have an agenda. We need to get religious. Merrick Garland, you've been a great Supreme Court justice, because that guy is the most milquetoast, moderate kind of guy. He's gonna piss off both sides and make neither happy, but he's actually just gonna say, yeah, this is what it says. We need to come to that agreement, because we want to just push our policies and our ideologies on the Constitution. It's just gonna degrade. It's just gonna get worse.
Wonderful. Well, thank you very much for joining me today. I know both of us probably have to get to work, but I appreciate it, and good luck.